What is data analytics? That's the topic of today's exercise. You will get a very brief overview over what data analytics is, as well as a little bit of a hands-on experience where you're kind of going to get a glimpse of what people who are doing data analytics are doing. My name is Yngvi Björnsson. I'm a professor here at the School of Computer Science. I'm currently the dean for the school, but I'm also a part of the AI research group here at the university, Artificial Intelligence Research Group. So data analytics is the process of extracting useful information from data and transforming it into an understandable structure for further use. So we can say we are taking raw data and we are using some insights to read some valuable information from the data. And when I say valuable information, it means these are information that can be used to someone to add value to their understanding of something or value to the business, etc. So a raw data in its basic form is not that useful. We really need to look into the data and try to gain some insights in the data that is valuable for our business, for example. So why are we doing that? Well, it's really a lot of value that is in the data. And today there's so much data floating around and there's so much speed in everything. It's becoming increasingly difficult for us humans to get the oversight that is needed for us to take informed decisions. So we are really increasingly relying on the computers to analyze the data and come up with the insights that we can then subsequently use to make more informed decisions. And by doing so, we create value, like in both for the business itself, like the better we know the customer, the more likely we are to maybe, for example, able to sell them, but also we can service our customers better. So there's a value in this also for the customers. They are, for example, might be able to get information they couldn't otherwise have gotten. And this is becoming increasingly relevant just to stay competitive. That businesses really have to be able to look into the data, both for trying to understand the customer better, but also to see if there are things that they could, there are new trends or something that is happening that you can capitalize on. And it's used in different sectors of the society. Like this is a survey, it's from 2011, a little bit outdated, but nonetheless, this has been the trend for many years, for quite a few years now. That is mainly used in customer relation management and marketing, but the academia is using data analytics a lot. The financial system, even though the financial sector, even though they may be somewhat more secretive of how they're using it, insurance company to try to understand, for example, which customer are more prone than others to have some accidents, for example, or to detect insurance frauds, and so on. There, across many different sectors, data analytics is being used by companies and institutions, and it's getting increasingly so for year from year, because, like we mentioned before, this is becoming more and more relevant for everyone. And computer scientists, we are more and more, our task is to build tools and use tools and try to use our knowledge of working with information, actually to try to do data analytics, to do some analysis on the data. And it used to be that this was first and foremost statisticians that were doing things like that, but now, because of the amount of data that we have, and also because there are a lot of computing tools that have been built over the last maybe 2 decades that are very good at doing this data. I'm well suited for doing this data analytics, and the computer scientists, we know how to work with those and how to get the best out of those tools. So again, more and more computer scientists are looking like more and more at the data side of computing. So it's not a new truth that you have to know your customers. It's always been like that. But it used to be much easier. Like when you were running a hardware store on the corner, the customer just came into the store and you were able to chat to the customer and really know the need of the customers. But that model is not that scalable. And when we have a stores that is serving maybe millions of customers, and it might be doing so globally over the entire world, and you never meet most of your customers in person, it's very difficult actually to know your customer. But that's what if you have the purchasing and the communication records of your customer, what the customer has been doing, what information the customer has been looking at on your website, emails, etc., you might actually be able to build quite a good idea of what the customers want and what the customer needs. And again, to be able to do that, you would have to need to use some tools for doing that. And this is again, this is only going to get more and more complex because we have examples now. For example, companies with very few employees are able to run a business that is serving millions and millions of people. And of course, the only way to do that efficiently is to use automation as much as you can. And data analytics is an important part of that. And there are many, many different data analytics techniques out there. One of them is called classification. And that is what we are going to work a little bit with today. You're going to do a classification task. But mainly, like if you talk about classification in the context of a customer, for example, for example, you have two types of customer. For example, if you're a bank, you could take your customers and you're going to give them a mortgage to a customer, and what you're really interested in knowing if the customer is likely to default on the mortgage loan or not. So you would then have two types of customer: one that is you think is likely to default, and one that is not likely to default. And what you have to do is, based on the information you have about the customer, for example, the salary, etc., you're going to decide which one of these two groups the customer is more likely to fall into. We have other types of data analytics called clustering. This means we don't know that there are two groups. Like in the previous example, there are two types of group. We have to figure out if there's a group of customer that is more homogeneous than another one, and try to figure out how many different distinct groups of customers there are, and so on. There are many different methods, and you will have the opportunity to learn more about them later in your study program. Like in the second year, you can take a course, Introduction to AI, and also Introduction to Machine Learning. And in particular, the latter one goes into quite a bit of details on some of these topics. So the classification, that's what we're going to do today. We are taking historical data, and we are going to use that data to build a model, and we can use then this model to predict about unseen data instances. For example, if we go back to the example about the bank that is giving out mortgages, the bank might have information about previous customers here. Like one record here would be information about a single customer. We know the annual income of the customer or salary, $70,000. The customer, this particular person owns a car, is single, and actually it didn't pay on time on its mortgage. Whereas this one did, and we have maybe information about hundreds, if not thousands, of these customers. We're going to use this data here to build, excuse me, some kind of a model. This particular model here is a decision tree, and then we can use this model here, and there can be many different type of models. So this is just one example of a model. So when we get a new potential customer here, we will collect information about the customer, and then we will feed. So this is the income, current status. This is information we can collect, and this is like the last column here. This is what we call the class of the customer, or the dependent variable. Basically, this is the category that we want to classify, we want to predict. So here we have two types of customer, one that are likely to pay and other that are not as likely to pay. And we basically want to predict for this new customer here which category it belongs to. So we will take this record, we will feed it into our model. So we are going to ask the question, does the customer have a salary greater than or equal to 85,000? Yes. This means we are going to ask the next question. Does he have a car? Yes, he has a car. And again, then we might, we might ask, so if it has a car, we are going to, it's likely to pay on time. So this is just a contract example, but this just shows how this works. And so the answer here, yes. So this answer in here, it's likely to pay. So we are going to probably grant this person a mortgage. For the clustering, again, the example here would be that we don't know that there are two types of customers. We might have to figure out if there's any group that is more homogeneous than another one. And then a part of this is also to come up with the number of groups. We are not going to go into any details in this. You will see this later in your studies if you're interested. Affinity analysis is another branch of data analytics. Major use of this is to, for example, trying to determine what type of goods customers buy together, like in a grocery store. If someone buys milk and cheese, they're also likely to buy bread. If we know that, we can take some advantage of that. And another branch is what is called recommender systems. And this is, for example, what Amazon is using when they are coming up with a recommendation. They they know there's someone out there that has similar taste as you have, for example, in books, and based on the recommendations of the other person, they can actually start recommending to you, or actually, given the preferences of the other person, they can make recommendations to you. There are many different tools out here for doing data analytics, and a tool called R is probably the most popular one. The green here, the dark green here, is the primary tool used. Typically, when you're doing data analytics, you use more than one tool. So green is the primary tool, the right green is a secondary tool, and then what you're using less and less. This orange is frequently used, and blue is occasionally used. And we are going to use in our exercise today a package